All right, the uranium sector right now is ripping. The major are up. Cameco and Uranium Energy Corp up over 50% year to date.
Yeah.
The uranium demand is set to double by 2040, I believe.
Yeah.
We have the pleasure to have with us today Dev Randhawa, CEO and Chairman of F3 Uranium. Good to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me. Wonderful to be here.
Yeah, for sure. We're also at the Swiss Mining Institute conference in Zurich. And so, Dev, you have a long history of success, you and your team. Can you walk us through, your early days even in investment banking and how you got started into the business?
Sure. It all started with someone telling me he met a guy in an elevator who wants to do something in the uranium space. And I then, like most people, I was wondering what they use uranium for. Anyways, it led to a meeting with Rick Rule. And he said, I'll support you. So that really I knew then we're heading in the right direction. Rick is generally considered to be one of the smartest, if not the smartest man in the junior mining space. And so I did. That's where we got into it. And then we had Bre-X after that. Things went quiet. And it was really until what happened in Australia. There was a fire in the Ranger mine, and there was a flood at Cigar Lake that drove the prices up. When I got into them, it was $7 a pound, and today, 75, 80, depending on each week.
Right, that was in 1996, right, when you got into the business. So you have around 30 years of experience in that business, and you started off with Fission Energy, and you later on had a really good success story with that.
Well,
right?
eventually we spun that out. What happened was we started a company called Strathmore.
Right.
And we had Canadian and U.S. assets. And another bright guy named Peter Grosskopf said, you should spin off the non-core assets in Canada. That became Fission Energy. We call it F1. So we split them up. The U.S. assets eventually got sold to Energy Fuels. And then Fission Energy had a joint venture with Korean Electric Power Company. They funded us, as you know, 2007, 8, 9, and 10 were very difficult times. So we signed something with KEPCO in January of 2008, and then they funded us through, and thankfully, we made a discovery next to Hathor that we sold to Denison Mines. We kept the west side of the basin, which nobody thought there was any uranium in. We had found some boulders, and we took that, which was F2 or FCU, led to boulders. It led to our neighbor next door, NextGen, making their discovery. So that became F2, and F2, as you know, sold last Christmas, about 12 months ago, for about $1.1 billion to Paladin.
Right.
So this is F3. It's, I guess it's the great grandson of Strathmore. But the interesting part is that if you look in your account today, okay, and if you stuck with us from that piece on, you'd have shares of Energy Fuels, shares of Denison, shares of Paladin, shares of F3, and our next spin-off is F4. So you own one share, and we've given a lot of dividends to our shareholders.
Right, because all the spin-offs, every time it happens, you get a share of the other company as well.
For free.
Both, right?
Yeah.
So you get a free share that's
Exactly.
given to you. Talk about the team, how important the team is. I know you've had a lot of awards with your team, and you stuck with them. You're still with the same team after all these years. Talk about that.
Well, in mining, it's about management. And obviously, as you know, in real estate, it's location. But in our industry, it's all about the people. And we've been fortunate. Our geophysics team has been together with us since back in F1, F2, and now we're in F3. The basin, you can't take ground samples, like in Namibia and other places, like even in Sweden, you can take samples on the ground, and it gives you an indication of what's underneath. That's not possible in the basin. They're too deep, and there's too much overburden, and they've also got sandstone, so you have to use geophysics. So our two geophysics guys, Ray Ashley and Sam Hartman, have been with us the whole time. And along the way, Ross McElroy, obviously with F1 and F2, was there. So we've been very fortunate, and I think, because of that, we've won. They say we're the most awarded team in the uranium mining space, but it's really about the team and working together. And that doesn't mean you agree all the time. We have lots of, I don't understand that. We should do it differently. We have a lot of that. But our end goal is our shareholders. And the other thing you'll notice about our company, insiders never sold a share. So it's not like, we get cheap shares and we sell them. No, we keep them. Whether our stock here has been as low as 7, 8 cents, made a discovery, went to 55. Now it's all the way down to 14, 15. Well, we haven't sold a share. So the other thing is people are committed to the long-term success. So they call it aligning shareholders and management together.
Right, and maybe take us through the actual share structure maybe of F3, because you're talking about the insiders haven't sold at all. What's the share structure for that company?
We've considered rolling it back, and if we were to list somewhere else with a higher stock price, we'd roll it back. Right now we have, about 600 million shares, which is a lot, which is not much compared to our friends in Australia, but in Canada. So we have considered right now 600 million, because what people remember is that there was Strathmore. So everybody in Strathmore got a free share of F1. We split F2, they got a free share of F2. Split F3. So it's been it's a long Rolodex of shareholders. Yeah, probably too many shares out for right now, but that's where we're at.
And what's the insider ownership?
We're about 6%. Denison has about 6-7%. They did a venture in us. I think it says something about Denison's been in the business a long time, as you know, back to Elliott Lake, and now they're Pioneer ISR in Canada, which would be amazing if we can do it, because we have a lot of deposits at the unconformity with a lot of water, and they feel they can do that. I think they can. And so them, 6-7%, Rick Rule and some others, 6-7%. So, as insiders, we don't have a tight control, but certainly a vested interest in running the company.
Right. Give us an overview of F3. I know you've had a recent really good result at your Tetra zone, and you have some good plans for that zone and drilling in the future as well.
Our first discovery about 3 years ago was a JR zone. And it's about 25 kilometers almost north of the next-gen Arrow and Paladin's RRR. And it's got a very strong core. There was one hole that was 4 meters of 50%, right, 4.5. And so it's done well. But on this conductor, you have to think of uranium typically like it's a pearls on a string. Sometimes they're 50 meters apart, 5 meters apart, but they're like that. And they're shear zones as well. So that we found this bit of uranium up there. It's very high grade, but it's on the A1 conductor and parallels B1, and then it comes back together. We're trying to find more uranium, but the most mineralization we found there is about 20 meters. On the Tetra, it's been as high as 60 meters. So we really feel the future for F3 is the new shiny thing would be the Tetra zone. In the first hole, we found a meter of high grade, 2.5%. Then about 15 meters away, we just announced that we found another chunk of high grade uranium. So that's important. The idea is you find enough of these lens or these shear zones, they add up to a lot of pounds. So our future right now, as you know, it's not that like you've got unlimited money, because every time you raise money, you dilute yourself. So you got to be careful. But we really want to focus as much as we can on the Tetra zone, simply because of sheer size. There was an old hole no one ever assayed, so it's about 1 kilometer long. So that's really we know it's a huge area, 1.2 kilometers, and it was 0.4 uranium, 0.4, so we know it's a big zone. And then we have found mineralization wide, up to 60 meters. So that's where our future is Tetra.
Right. So with Tetra, what is exactly the drilling program that's coming up?
Well, we raised 20 million. We have about 30 million in the bank. 15 million we're going to spend. We're going to spend 3 million this winter, then 4, then 4, and 4. So we're spreading it out. This money will take us into almost beginning of 2027 for drilling. And the whole idea is to check these lens. It's a little different, the geology. There's a mudstone cover, and that's why the previous group gave up on it. They didn't think there was any uranium there. You fly over it with a VTEM, and you're looking for conductors. In the basin, all uranium typically comes up through a conductor. But the previous group did there, they couldn't see any signs that there was anything there. But we thought, it doesn't make any sense. You've got conductors here, conductors there, conductors here, conductors here. Hang on, let's take a look. And sure enough, first hole we hit. And it was because there's a mudstone there that's covering up the conductor that's underneath. You can't get the strong signals of it. These are graphitic conductors. So when you run a VTEM, you're looking for graphitic conductors to come up. Typically all uranium, Cigar Lake, and all these have been that way. But like I said, our team is very unique. And I want to point that out because, you know, when I got in the business, they said, first of all, there is no uranium on the west side of the basin. Everything, from your perspective, everything's on the east. There's nothing over here, number one. Number two, you have to stay inside the so-called circle, the Athabasca. You know, and what it means is that when you're in the Athabasca, you have this bit of sandstone, like a milkshake, sitting on hard rock. Where the two meet, they call the unconformity as the water comes up. So they said, Dev, all the uranium has to be on the east side from your perspective, nothing on the west side, and you have to stay in the lines, and it has to be an unconformity type deposit, like Cigar Lake, like the big ones. Our guys didn't believe that. And we flew an airplane really close to the ground, two tops, and looking for boulders and outcrops. We found them. And if they don't do that, we don't discover Paladin, next gen never gets narrow. Imagine the uranium space without those two big monsters.
Yeah, so you talked about Rick Rule earlier, right?
Yeah.
He always talks about having a contrarian approach to his investments.
Yeah.
You have a contrarian approach to your exploration, actually.
Absolutely.
Because you went in the west and the east.
That's a very good
People
point.
Didn't believe in that.
Because our guys, they've done a lot of crazy things, but it's worked. But if it wasn't for that idea, but they got that idea from the diamond business. In the diamond business, they take choppers and they look for garnets. They're indicator minerals. If you find garnets, find the source. We felt if we find boulders or outcrops, it would lead to a source, and they were right. So that's why our story is about our technical team that has found deposits at the unconformity, have found deposits in the basement, and that's why it's called the Tetra. It's the fourth zone we found. Obviously the first one was 12 to 15 million pounds, other ones over 150 million pounds, other ones smaller, we don't know yet. We'll do a maiden resource before Christmas, and now we've got this other one. That's why we're excited, because it's just the sheer size of it.
Right. Now, if we go more into the macro area and talk about uranium prices, I know they've been kind of dropping over the past bit here. How does that affect you as a business?
Well, a lot. Unfortunately, today's money world is about momentum, and people move. Like, obviously, gold and silver, rightly so, have picked up a lot of the shiny people running into silver and gold. Because people do a lot of online stuff, people tend to move their money quicker today, more momentum. Let's go here for a while. And the momentum's come out of. And also, the big funds, as they move in, they go after the super high cap ones like Cameco and etc. They don't go near the junior stuff because they can't employ that much capital on a company worth 75, 80 million. So the junior stocks have been beat up quite a bit. But contrarian, like, this is the time that people should be buying their stocks, not when your own prices start to rise. But on the idea of nuclear power, I mean, my goodness, you've got, Bill Gates building a modular reactor in Wyoming. You've got Meta, Amazon. I believe that whoever has the most clean energy or energy general will win the AI race. Whoever wins the AI race, I believe, has a significant advantage in industry. So that's why, Donald Trump, like him or not as a person, he said, we have to spend, and an agency came, I came in the group, 1.2 trillion. Now, they made a deal with the Westinghouse and the government with Cameco and said, here's 80 billion, let's go. We're behind. We're like it or not, we're behind China. I know a bit about China because back when they were the good guys, back in 2016, they gave me 82 million. So I've been there 21 plus times, to Beijing, to Shenzhen, and all through meeting those. And they're very focused because obviously, as you know, if you go there to, here you can see a beautiful sky. That you won't see in China anywhere. The only time you see a clean sky in China when the wind's blowing and it takes away all the pollution and etc. So they need it. So I believe in the US, the macro story has never been better. I went to the nuclear conference in, it was London, and Microsoft was there. because they're signing up, so we need to be a part of the answer. So when I used to go to these shows back in 96 to 2005, I was a redheaded stepchild sort of thing. Go to these, nobody wanted to talk to you, and uranium, what the hell is that for? I remember even having Dickinson and Friedland tell me, what the hell are you doing in uranium? Of course, eventually Robert brought his son into the business, and so to me, the story could not be better. But for everybody, this is simple. If I was an investor, I would watch SPUT, which was set up by Peter Grosskopf, by the way. SPUT, whenever it trades at a discount, buy uranium stocks. When it goes above, sell uranium stocks. That's how they should be doing it, because that's your indicator. Is when it trades at a discount, it means that what they own is not trading what it's worth. And because it's a bear sentiment. Right now we have a bear sentiment, and we've also got tax laws and tax selling season, so we'll see what happens. But to me, the story for uranium couldn't be better, because it's about clean energy. It's really about AI. If you think AI is the future, we have to have data centers. And to have data centers, people have no idea how much energy these data centers, they use more than a big city.
Yeah, well, I think recently Microsoft CEO, he mentioned that the main roadblock, to those AI data center is energy, and that they'll need it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, going forward into more of your company, what are the catalysts that are coming up for you?
Well, for us, the one that, what drives the stock will be two things we don't control: the spot price, and a merger, an acquisition of us, or we acquire somebody else. Those are things we don't control to a certain degree, especially not the spot price. We control our drilling. We have 30 million, we're well financed, well managed. It's clearly our goal is to find more lens of uranium or pearls on a uranium in this 1.6 kilometer. And like I said, it's only 12 kilometers from NextGen's Arrow or the Paladin RRR. And so the whole idea, that's the only way we can. We have to keep finding uranium and hope the spot price starts moving a bit.
Right. So you talked about what you control, what you don't. You also talked about during the interview about focus.
Yeah.
And you are very focused, on uranium in the same jurisdiction usually.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of companies that go between copper and then they go to silver, then they go to whatever shinier object, right?
Yeah.
How does that relate to your business philosophy?
Well, I've always believed that we need more energy regardless, and clean energy the better. And there's no doubt about it. There's two things people don't understand why renewables why solar and wind haven't come to primarily is, there's issues of storage, that's one. But the main thing is, man isn't God. We can't tell the wind to blow, we're all gonna have dinner now, whole city's gonna have dinner. So we need base load power. We need to turn it on, turn it off. Coal, just throw more coal on. And a fire, throw more wood on. And that you can do with nuclear. You can't do that with wind and solar, and that's the problem. And I think people mean well. That leads to politicians making poor decisions, in my view, and taking way too much capital. That money should have gone into smaller modular reactors. Imagine $1 trillion that Obama and his friends Gore wasted on. They put money into companies. 6 months later, they were gone. Where are the trillions of dollars between credits and everything else? I don't know. But had they spent that money on nuclear power, we would be ahead in the AI race, not China.
Right. Before we close this interview, is there anything you'd want to add to potential investors about your company right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say certainly when I invest, it's funny, when I'm an investor, that's how I got in the business. I never asked too much about the asset, about the people. What's their track record of delivering? What do they do? How many uranium companies out there gave you bought one share, and now suddenly you had Energy Fuels, Denison, Paladin, F3. You're talking 5 companies. Yeah. So who's done it? And I believe we'll find another chunk of uranium more along it. So really it's about the people. We're well funded. We're covered by 4 different analysts. Whether it's Haywood or Red Cloud, Cormark, SCP, we're covered by. They've done their homework. They've gone to the property, so they know. So I'd encourage people to be contrarian, listen to Rick Rule, is you buy stuff when people aren't looking. That's how we also do. That's how we buy our properties.
Yep.
We have a list of all the companies when claims drop. To get into the Athabasca Basin, and actually we didn't probably mention that, but we produce second most uranium in the world, next to Kazakhstan. And it's a very safe place to be. We've got the infrastructure for it, and the province and the country are for it. So you don't, like Niger, people have lost their properties. There's no political risk here. So pick the right management team, the right jurisdiction, and let's just hope that the pot price responds to the big story. As we know, there's always a gap between the time the movement happens and the junior stocks. There's always a lag. The lag will turn. This is the time to buy stocks like us.
Yeah, because right now all the majors are up, right? So you got to look at the
They've
juniors.
come off a little bit. I mean, Cameco was up there 130, much higher now. It's a little lower.
Yeah.
But
year to date, they're still up. Year to date, over the past like 1 month or two.
I bought my kid's stock at $21, $21, and they've held and then because one of the things is why you get a lopsided view is because the big funds have to go to Cameco and some stocks that are $1 billion to employ their capital.
Yeah.
And they can't come into junior ones. But you will see that trickle-down effect. As they continue to rise, people look for it. And I do believe, because we've been at it for a while, we'll see some of that cash flow coming down. Very, very frustrating. You're doing the right things, and the stock doesn't. But that's typical in our industry. The fundamentals don't always match up to the stock price.
Right, 100%. Well, keep doing what you do best. Keep focus on uranium, Athabasca Basin, where you've had 2 amazing success stories, and I wish you all the best for the future of F3 Uranium.
Well, thank you, chance to talk to you and some of your investors, and we're pretty good at responding. There's just come to our website. Jamie Bannerman's the head of Corp, and he will respond back. And we put together webinars through Red Cloud. They can join in. They can ask questions.
Right.
We answer our phone. We're not always proud of our stock price, but we're always proud of our team and proud of our progress.
Right, 100%. Okay, well, we'll throw all that information in the description below.
Fantastic.
And so anyone that has a question, feel free to reach out to them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.